See, my right?
I don't want that.
Miss Mendoza is what I meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mrs. Hovish here. Martinez, right? Mrs. Martinez.
And
is
she
our
just
other one.
notified me she will not be able to
Okay,
make it,
Mrs.
so that's
Martinez
okay.
is absent.
Okay, very good. I'll watch for Trina.
Is that all of our members?
That's everyone. Joel, is the sound coming through okay?
Sounds great.
Good, that means our anchor thing's working. I think if you don't have a copy, I made now obviously plenty of copies. A copy of the minutes. Move to adopt the minutes as presented.
Just a second.
And then that's just the was right.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we can move on to the annual financial report for discussion. Over to Mr. Brice.
The annual financial report.
Yes.
If you want me to share it from my end, we'll need to enable.
Yes, thank you. I'll get you right now. Number 4, by the way, is current budget as of September 20th. September. We're not to there yet, but I realized I didn't fill the rest of that out. September 30, 2024 is what that agenda item should say. Yeah, and there should be plenty of copies of that. Audited financial report.
So are we on the annual financial report to the state or the board financial report?
We are on the AFR. So that's
Good.
the landscape one with signature spots in right here. You might need this.
So can you all see this from my end, or are you looking at it on the handout?
We also have it in front of us. Wanted to guide us.
Beautiful. All right. So the annual financial report, it's that time of year where we fill this out. This is our actual financial performance that we submit to the state for all sources of funding and all expenses. So unlike the budget where that's a projection and it's our best educated guess, this is the actuals that occurred looking back at fiscal year 24 that ended on June 30th of 2024. So once we're done and you have approved this, you'll sign off on the left-hand side as members, and then on the right-hand side, two school officials.
On the right side, two officials.
What was that?
Joe, we might have you call in to our conference line. You're
Okay.
breaking up to- Or I'll call you on our conference line.
Let's do that.
This number. I think I have it memorized.
Can you hear me?
Much better, thank you.
There we go.
Although we'll
Now
have
we're
to
talking.
mute. I'll mute the computer. All right, let's do it.
All right. So once the board has approved this AFR package, you'll sign off on the left-hand side over here. And then the two school officials, Brian and Beth, will sign up on the right-hand side as well as on the left-hand side. So with that, we're going to get right into it. First page of the report gives an overview of your all revenue, broken down into three categories: local, state here in the middle, and federal at the bottom. We generated a total of $11.296 million in some change last year across all sources of funding.
Did I mess up? Wait, I think my copies got goofy.
That's this first back page. Do you not have? Oh, mine has a print on the back. You guys don't have that on the very front page?
Excited with the wrong. See, I told y'all we needed somebody smarter than me. What is this for? No, that's wrong.
We only got one copy that was right.
Why would some of them not have every other page? All right, just squeeze in and show us, Joel. We'll follow every other page.
All right, can you see this okay here?
Now a little bit closer, a little bit closer.
It's about as big as I can get without it being difficult to work with. Let's see. Let's see.
Which page am I?
There we go.
What's your next page after this one? I'm missing every other page.
Is yours the original or something?
Oh, maybe it probably is the original. And then I did something wonky.
Okay, well, we can see it when
Yeah,
Actually,
better.
get that.
Well, I'll go through it in the order that it's
You want me to
produced,
go right
and then
in?
hopefully you
No,
guys can see it well
no,
enough
it's
to
good.
follow along.
You're the most important right now.
The
See it?
first page that has any data on it is the second page of the document. This is an overview of revenues. Local funds at the top, about $171,000 in total local funds. These are fees that we charge for different things, whether it's a paid meal or a field trip or athletics or anything like that. Also donations, tax credit contributions, that kind of thing. About $8.5 million in state source revenues, most of which is state equalization, classroom site funds, instructional improvement funds, and school safety grants. And then $2.552 million in federal funding. A lot of that was ESSER, but also your entitlements, IDEA, National School Lunch Program, and then this time, one time only, $528,000 in ERTC revenue that we recorded from a prior period and recognized it in 24.
Hey, maybe make your cursor bigger, Joel.
I wish I could. How did I do that?
I'm an old guy. Don't make me do this. Never mind. It's a settings thing. So I got you. I'll try to point with mine as I see where you are. Okay.
So I'm looking at line number 25 through 31 right now, then going to 32, 11.296 million total revenue. That's really all that's on this page. It's just revenues only.
Okay.
The next page, which is going to be a little harder to see.
We can't see this one.
School-wide expenditures. These are all of your expenses from school-wide sources, which for you is all of your local revenue, all of your state equalization, and all of your Prop 123 and one-time funding that we received last year only. So this is not all of your expenses, but it's the majority of your expenses. And it's expenses paid from school-wide sources. It's broken down over here on the left-hand side, top to bottom, by the function or the purpose of the expense, what it supports, or whether it's instruction or some other kind of support. And then from left to right by the natural object grouping or the type of expense it is, salaries, benefits, services, supplies, and others. You can see in this situation, we spent $7.193 million down here on line 33 in the third or far right-hand column from all school-wide sources. And then the rest of it tabulates from other pages that we're going to cover here momentarily. There's another 707. And then a little over $2 million in federal revenue that we spent out over the course of the year, leaving just the ERT. The part of this one that's a little bit misleading, the far right-hand column, the percentages of difference, because of how classification can change from year to year and our expenditures can change a little from year to year, those numbers they swing quite wildly. And we noticed in this document, they weren't tabulating the percentage correctly. So when I look at the actual numbers from the prior year and the actuals from this year, it gives you a better sense of what's going on there. All right. The next page of the report is an overview of classroom site fund revenues and expenditures. We brought in $776,870 in classroom site funds and spent it all.
Okay.
Actually, spent a little bit more than that. So we spent into our carryover from the prior period, new teacher compensation increases, retention incentives, and performance pay for teachers. So we've got about a $52,000 carryover, Brian, from that's not really relevant. You try to keep this number low because any carryover is restricted cash on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
So we look to spend those restricted funds first, and that leaves on your balance sheet unrestricted funds you can use for any purpose. The next page of the report is instructional
Do you have this
improvement.
one?
58,000 and the same number in expenses. We have no carryover funds. This is FBI funding and participatory instruction. We don't receive the latter, but this is another one that you have to spend everything you get. It's a grant, essentially. The $22,958 in, same amount out, spent to zero on FBI. This page is just a hodgepodge of a bunch of different stuff from your balance sheet and certain types of expenditures broken down. It tabulates into their larger reporting mechanism, but really not a lot to point out specifically on this page. But the one thing we'll want to do, this section H right here, this is information that we'll need to update our website to reflect.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the Charter Transparency Law changes that happened a number of years ago. So this gives us an overview of average teacher compensation from any source, any type of compensation, 1 year to the next. So we went up about 3.3% in total across our teacher cadre.
And that's from 23 to 24 or from the beginning of this measurement?
From 23 to 24, yes, right. They just do a 1 year comparison now. They started tracking this in 2017. It's gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Just 3.3% on average. And that's, keep in mind, that's given whatever changes to your staffing occur. So if you lost go up 3.3%, though there was some movement. This page feeds in from page 2. This is just an overview of your school-wide special education expenditures. So this does not include federal funds. This is only state and local funds. We spent $242,000 and some change from those sources of funding on our special education program. And in truth, we did spend quite a bit in order to make sure we don't establish an unreasonably to maintain in future years. I maintain this in accordance with what did we spend the year before. We kind of keep it in line with that from state sources, and then the difference of spending, we move to regular education instruction spending. This page is an overview of your federal program and state program. And then it's going to be hard for you to see it over here in the for each of these categories, and then we have no carryover out of these funds. Almost all of these, you kind of only earn the dollar when you spent the dollar already. They're on a reimbursement basis. So very few times will we ever have a carryover out of these funds. The next page is an overview of all expenses, regardless of their source, state, federal. You add this all up together, this is an accurate picture of directly with the bottom line number on page 2. It just breaks it down differently, and then it calls out some specific items from your balance sheet and your expenses that they're tracking with a little more clarity, a little more specificity. This is all same data represented for the most part. This is an overview of your COVID-specific funding and expenses related thereto. This is the second to last year. I think we'll have one more year of this report for the fiscal year 25, and then this will be gone from the package. But it kind of brings in some historic information, brings you through the current year 24, and kind of shows in general terms where it was spent and what it was spent on.
And so this amount remaining to spend on the ESSER, 303,000.
First three, all we have is the first 3 months of this year. So
That's
personnel expense.
what I was going to ask. Okay, very good.
All right, this is so they're now requiring some information on fund balance, but without boring you with too much detail, the issue is that fund balance refers to all assets on the balance sheet by fund. What they really want to know is your reserve, liquid and accessible to you. So we changed what they wanted, but it just didn't tabulate correctly to reflect your closing cash balances by fund.
I think you could zoom in on this a little bit more, Joel. On this one, I think we could get closer on this one.
We can. You're right.
There we go.
All right. So what it brought in from last year was not accurate. We've kind of gone through with some reversion and then taken care of expenses this year, balance sheet activity. Now we are ending with the correct fund balance from a cash perspective, liquidity only, not other assets, just your actual reserve. And the reason for that, it just feeds into the next page, which is this page. Let me back out now.
No, it's good.
Pending balance for we finished here. If you recall, our cash balance at the end of fiscal year 23 out of our own pocket from our loan to the facility in order to avoid significant interest charges. So it was a good move. We just had much lower cash on the balance sheet last year. We got that money in July. So back up to normal and finished this year and grew our cash this year. The only other thing worth pointing out on this, and this is more of an FYI for future, while we're not required to have a policy regarding our reserve balance, one of the things they're providing some more guidance on it. Actually, that's some pretty decent guidance through the state on things you might consider making a board policy if you choose, as far as what your wishes are as a board and in regard to liquidity or cash on your balance sheet. On this as a result of that.
So on the potential board policy, would that be in regarding the money we have in Sunflower Bank or that kind of money, or just sitting in our Chase savings?
All of the above. It would all be viewed on the aggregate, Brian, together. They might be worth considering, and the biggest reason is the board understands the importance of reserve and what you use it for and what it's used for, basically. As things change, future members may not be up to speed on that, so that institutional knowledge can get lost. And one of the things that are saying is, and it is probably a best between XYZ days cash, in addition to any cash investment required for future use, kind of stipulate what you want to keep and when you want to spend it and how you want to spend it. So it's something to consider, again, not for now, but I do think it'd be a best practice to give that not just some thought, but to put in writing what your intentions are. And we're talking minimum levels, not maximum. Your liquidity currently is quite a bit high in the future, but it's there, and you can.
Okay.
Any questions on the AFR package?
That's what,
I think, Brian, there were some grants that the school secured in this past school year. Where do those hit? Like the and that kind of stuff, but where?
Yeah, where, Joel, how did those like we got the 20,000 from Larry Fitzgerald. That was in 2022, I think. And last year we got the Americans Fund grant for 35,000. Where do those land on our budget and accounting?
None of those happened to have been budgeted because that was not something we were tracking in the budget. Also, if it's a state grant, it would show up in this kind of here on the page that we're looking at. The Larry Fitzgerald grant would have shown up under local revenues, and it would have been under this 1920 contributions and donations from private sources
Oh,
line. The 35,000 that you're talking about from last, did you receive that last year, Brian?
this year, I guess, yeah, the last academic year, calendar year.
Let's do this. Let's look for that because that's not at the top of my mind. I need to make sure we have that notice before this is audited. So you said it was in February?
Yeah, that project was, we planted all the trees, I believe it was February, to go through everything. I think we received the money reimbursements probably April, by the time everything was said and done. It would have come in the total
There's your face, just not on camera yet.
Reconnect with conference. Here we go. Come on, start video. Okay, we're streaming on live tube again. Okay, we're back. That's where we need to be. Ish. Man, I don't know if it's our internet here. Is something weird happening or Zoom?
It's not responding again.
Watch it again. Sorry, Joel, we're having a couple little
No worries.
technical moments here. What's that guy say? Launch meeting. What's this guy say? Nothing. I'm gonna go right here and start it again, right? Leave and start a new meeting? No, I don't want to leave and start a new meeting. There it is, right? Okay, there it is. I'm just going to do my video for a minute. Okay, we still have Joel.
We're still live streaming. I think we just
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
All right. So the thing to answer is, what money did you think you were supposed to get in last fiscal year from that source? And then I can tell you the only thing that's here that's kind of non-customary is that urban forestry grant for $7,000. We didn't see anything else come in. This matches the AFR now, so if it were to come in and it should have been booked in last year, at this point, what we use that process for is a reversion to next year's AFR. We say, hey, here's the money we didn't report in the prior period and some expenses against it. That then, with that reversion, it lines up to your fiscal year audited financials at that point. So it's not the end of the world if it's not included in here, but the question becomes, process-wise, how did that get missed? Or is it just a receivable at the end of the year? It's not booked anywhere else, I can tell you that. So we didn't physically receive it by 6:30.
Or was it just not coded the right way? Oh, maybe by 6:30. You know, that's possible, knowing how complicated it was getting that money. That's possible too.
Well, let's do this. Let's look at this fiscal year and see if we can see it there. And then we just know that needs to be a correction as a receivable if the expenses fell in last fiscal year.
I think the largest part though, Ben, are you saying that some of those grants and things need to be like spelled out specifically inside of that local revenue?
Yeah, man, it sounds like it. So if, for example, that $7,000 payment from Forest Grant hit the books in April or May, then it would be reflected in this AFR somewhere because the AFR aligns with our QuickBooks. So in that instance, it would just have been put in the wrong bucket if it were supposed to have been a private party contribution. I think the overarching question there is, if it's in the report, if it's on the AFR somewhere, which bucket did it fall in?
Yeah, right now, Alex can tell you exactly where it's at. It's on line 26 right here, part of this $1.974 million. It was noted as a federal fund coming in under the urban forestry funding source and the CAFTA number associated with it. If it wasn't that type of revenue and it was actually a local grant, then it should have been up here in this first grouping. We can use reversions to deal with that later as well if needed.
Yeah, what really matters is it's in the report.
It is in the report. That much I can guarantee that $7,000 is. Now, if we receive, let's say, another $20,000 today that really is related to last year's expenses, we'll use the 25 AFR and the reversion process to correct the AFR.
Okay.
It'll be included in our audit correctly at that point, but it's not in this AFR package. If there's additional funding, the 7,000 we were just looking at is in this on line 26. And no.
Okay. Okay, hold on, meeting. Let's let's finish this thing. Okay, very good. All right, any other questions on that? Oops, sorry, Ms. Jones.
So we're saying we can go ahead and sign this and it's fine.
I believe so. I move to approve the annual financial review for fiscal year 2024 as presented.
As presented on that.
As presented on the full one. Exactly.
I'll second.
You just want
This
to
is
roll.
an roll call vote.
Okay. Dr. Windsor?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Tejan?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mrs. Hobeige, yes.
Is there, do we have, okay, so is this the financial
Yes.
report? Okay, that's presentation of current budget? Is the unaudited financial report?
Correct. Item 4. That's okay.
Okay. Do you have that, Joel? We're looking at the,
Unaudited financial
yes,
report?
yes.
Yes, I sure do.
Okay, we're ready for that.
Let's do it. One second. All right, let's make this bigger. We're using a slightly different report model, so bear with me. It's got the same information, it's just laid out a little different.
I noticed that.
What I'm accustomed to. So this report includes all unaudited activity for the beginning of the fiscal year through September 30th, so the first quarter of the fiscal year. We're going to go through some very basic general information and then some comparative information and then a couple different views of your budget and how you're doing in regard to that. So the school achieved a debt service coverage ratio of 1.24 to maximum annual debt service and 1.42 to actual debt service in fiscal year 24. Both of those are very strong performance measures. That was inclusive of $528,000 of employer retention tax credit funding that we had deferred to a future period. So if you back that out, it was definitely not a profitable year. But all things considered, that was part of the financial plan from the get-go. So that worked very well for us. We achieved a days cash on hand measure of 246.74 in 24 compared to 124, 44 in 23. The difference for the big change again is we had paid for a little over $2 million in construction costs out of our own cash to be reimbursed in July, the start of the
Oh,
Joel?
do we drop you?
I don't know if you can hear me. I just lost you on the phone.
I think the call dropped on the phone.
Yeah. Technology's not our friend today, is it?
Okay, here. Ben, it's 480. Hit the 9. 480 200 2115. And the green button to go. Sorry, Charlie.
Stop hanging up on us. Volume.
that guy.
Line's up there.
But again, the difference in the day's cash on hand is being, quite the extreme swing there is we paid for a little over $2 million in construction costs out of our cash at the end of 23, or by the end of 23. We were reimbursed in July of 24. We did that to save interest on that construction loan. It was a very good move, made a lot of sense. That money being back in the coffers as well as whatever proceeds we've earned this year is what brings our cash back up to that very nice number, 246 plus days. So we're currently projected for fiscal year 25 at a debt service coverage of 1.31. That we want to try to maintain in that range if at all possible, given the fact that we're in a position to restructure our indebtedness on all the facilities here in the next year or two if we wish. And this fiscal period we're in now will be in the immediate rearview mirror. And having good performance in those years affects your ability to get loans at a more agreeable rate. So we've done a very good job year after year of performing. We want to keep that trend going in all one thing. We'll also increase our cash by the end of this fiscal year to almost 300 days approximately by the end of the year. So enrollment for the year, we're built the budget on 813 ADM models by 851 students. I think as of this morning, we were looking at the numbers were 852 students. So we're right where the budget said we need to be. ADM is pretty much, this is just based on your funded count for your payment that you got, or will get tomorrow, I should say. You're funded at 811.8 ADM. So again, right on the budget.
Do you know why those numbers are different?
Basis for enrollment. So good shape there.
Hey, Joel, could you explain why ADM is different than why one is 811.8 and the actual humans are 851?
Yes, Arizona, in its brilliance, decides that a kinder student is only worth 1/2 an ADM. ADM stands for average daily membership. The way that we get paid from the state is based on our total membership from day 1 to day 100. Even though it's a 180-day school year, that's the period of time they measure. And that 100th day, by the 100th day, I should say, we've kind of locked in our funding for the year. So membership counts, but kinders are only worth 0.5 or 10. So the difference is the amount of kinders that we have.
Yeah.
All right, statement of financial position or balance sheet. I gave you the expanded view so you can see everything and kind of how it comes through in this report deck. I apologize, but just note that cash as of September 30th, 2024, 4.855 million as compared to 5.040 million in September 30th of 23. So very functionally the same, about $185,000 difference. With you and the size of your budget, those swings in cash, even though it sounds like a lot of money, it's fairly de minimis change in cash from one 12-month period to the next. We're going to finish this year with growth in cash. No problems there. I'm going to skip right to the bottom here. This is something the board can track as well. Your growth in net assets from September 30th of 23 to September 30th of 24. We decreased net assets by $260,000. A lot of that has to do with the construction loan and that facilities financing. It's not at all unusual to lose a little net asset balance when you finance something. You have construction costs, you also have cost of issuance and other things in there. We'll build that back very handsomely, but you have a very nice net asset balance in the positive regardless. Everything else on the balance sheet materially similar, and really no movement at any time that needs to be.
Well, something also that we missed the September payment, which will thankfully were cash well, and some glitches happened, and we missed the September payment. So that would have made a big difference, right?
Yeah, it was a huge point, Brian. So yeah, $750,000 in loss in the first quarter of the year, but it's only because we did not receive a September state equalization payment due to a data irregularity. So actually, that's even an even better point, Brian. If we had that, we would have grown that assets over the last 12 months.
No,
Yeah.
Right.
humans
I'm proud
happen.
about that. That was quite the deal. Statement of activities, the same thing, gives you comparison this year for the first 3 months versus last year for the first 3 months, and where things are different. Notice the difference in revenues from the state side. That's entirely due to that difference in state aid payments that we didn't get in September of this year. Tomorrow we receive the September and October payments collectively. So we're caught up to zero again and right on track. And then the difference in federal revenues last year has a lot to do with COVID funding that is no longer available in the size and quantity that we were drawing it down last year. Expense-wise, about an $81,000 decrease in expenses in the first quarter of this year over last year. Some of that is by design to make the budget work this year. We did not do anything significant as far as tests go, but that's part of the course. I guess that $81,000 decrease there. Most of it comes from personnel, as you can see there. All right, statement of cash flows. Really strange. $850,000 decrease since we started the fiscal year, and again, almost entirely due to not receiving a state aid payment in September. Statement of activities, budget versus assets. I think this is a more meaningful report for the board to view and see, are we on track with our plan for the year? How are we doing in comparison to what we planned to do? So, as far as the budget goes, about $142,000 decrease in revenue compared to our plan. I'm not worried about that. It's all federal, and we're going to make that up. We start drawing down the federal funds. I just didn't time it right in the budget. On the personal services side, this is entirely timing of how I broke the budget down. Every time I do that, for some reason, it slips my mind that we're a 26 pay, and we had August with 3 payroll versus just the normal 2. So the budget was not broken down in accordance with how we actually are spending the money on payroll. So that's one of the biggest reasons for the overrun there. And then startup costs for the beginning of the year. I didn't front load supplies and other purchase services related to advertising, insurance, and that kind of thing. So having looked at the detail behind this, I'm very comfortable with our budget parameters for the year, even though this does not reflect it. We've taken on most of the expenses that we do at the startup phase in the first 3 months of the year. When I adjust the budget for the next go round, I'll move those expenses into the period they belong in the budget, and you'll see this lines up very nicely. The next page is a new report edition. This gives you an idea of your remaining capacity in total, your annual budget minus the first 3 months of actual, so what's left to get and spend. I find this to be pretty meaningful, especially later in the year, to see what is left. When we make decisions on things that were not planned, this is the thing that we'll consult to see where can we put it, how do we pay for it, what do we move. And then the last page, which didn't make it into here, Brian, I apologize, is your overview of your budget performance. Give me 1 second, I'm going to pull that up real fast.
Talking about the performance dashboard.
Yes, that did not make it into the PDF. That's no fun. All right, let's blow this up. So
I was wondering where that was. That's my favorite one.
Kind of where we're at and where we think we're going to finish. We're going to do about $10.1, $10.2 million.
A little bit bigger, Joel. A little bit bigger.
Bigger?
Bigger.
The problem with these screens, I can't tell how it looks on your end.
A little bigger. Fill it up. Fill it up.
I can't see it if I go any bigger.
Yeah, I can kind of see it now. I can see it on my laptop, but
10.183 million-ish in revenue, over about 9.2 million in ordinary expenses. Brings us to a debt service coverage against actual of 1.31. I feel comfortable we're gonna get to that number this year unless something very significant changes. And then days cash are about 299 days, maybe 300 or less. By the time we finish here, that takes into account all of our planned activity from a capital expenditure standpoint. Brian, with the exception of like the air conditioning thing we talked about today, that's probably in excess of what I assume for capital for the year. It's okay. It's not gonna hurt us.
I have a plan
Got a plan.
with James. Yeah.
But one thing I will let the board know, we're gonna go through and reconcile the budget, at the middle of this month. What that means is we go through and take a look at actual staff on hand, their annualized contracts, any stipends and other pay, our actual funded count for students and all those things, and our trend for the first 3 months of the year, and make a change to the budget where it's indicated one should be made, just to make sure we're still tracking the right numbers. At that time, if it changes the bottom line performance, we get together as a management team and talk about what needs to change in general. How do we pay for that change so it's a zero sum? In other words, if we're running hot in one category, we look at that and say we're going to pay for that by not doing something else with the budget. And based on our discussion this morning, I really don't see that there's going to be any material shift from our actual, now that we're pretty much fully hired for the year and expenses are on the books for the first quarter. Again, I think the budget's in really good shape for the year.
Yeah. The net income, our third, is that to the 2,083,000?
No, where are you looking?
My third dashboard thing is the net income.
Oh, net income. So the one that the charter board will
Yeah.
measure you on is this number right here, 970,512. Basically, your net income before depreciation, amortization, and non-cash action.
All right, that's still good. I like that. 907,000. Okay, very good. All right, no vote on that one, Steve.
Oh, there's no vote on that?
No, it's just
Okay.
presentation.
All right, thank you, Joel.
You got it.
All right.
Brian, did you want me to go through the financial framework? Is that on the agenda?
It is definitely on the agenda.
Where is that?
It's in my
Okay.
in
yeah.
my PowerPoint
Okay.
training.
So I'm turning it over to you anyway for annual corporate business.
That's the executive director's job. I'm going to skip A. Miss Trina Franklin has expressed some interest in joining the board, but I don't want to vote on anybody or anything like that until I am solid and know that they're here. Everyone has a conflict of interest a policy. So if you get that out, there is a conflict of interest policy in your board binder. It should be in the corporate doc section number 7. And it's like page, it's in there, it's down there. Anyway, you have the conflict of interest policy. Now, what we need is every year just to sign the acknowledgement, the 6th page of that.
Five.
And I think I made copies of the new conflict of interest. Somebody can also pick, so somebody must have picked those up because I made a bunch of copies.
I
Yeah.
have them.
All right, yeah, if you can sign this, read it, sign it, and then get it over to me so I can put it in our file.
Need a pen?
I don't have an electronic one.
Our title on the board or just?
Our title on the board, yes. More. Very good. While we're sitting here, I'm going to pass this around too so we don't leave. Just sign on this is the AFR, just sign this front page. That's all Joel will need. Right, Joel, you just need the signature page of the AFR?
Just the signature. Yep.
Okay, I'll get that to you tonight. All right, the next section is actually, let's just do this. So I can get Joel where you need to be. Share my screen. You see that all right? Let's do a little training first so Joel can, I want to make sure that we understand the new frameworks and what our stewardship and our responsibilities are. I think we've all been here a long time. This is your second annual meeting, right? Because you're here last October, I believe. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
That's when you're on church committee secretary.
That's right. That's right. Charter school. This is also because it's an open meeting and we want this to be recorded that we've gone over these things. A charter school is a public school because we receive public funds. District means it's a political subdivision of the state and geographic boundaries. A charter school does not have geographic boundaries inside of the state. Our geographic boundaries are outside of the state. If we could transport someone, get them here, they could go to our school. The legal purpose of our charter is to provide a learning environment that will improve pupil achievement, period, full and stop. It's about academic achievement, our contract is. It's to provide academic choices for parents and pupils and an alternative to a traditional public school. I wondered if we all knew the question to this. What is our mission statement and what is our moral purpose? If you could take a couple of minutes on a piece of paper and write down, what's our mission statement? What do you think our moral purpose is for Paideia? Three minutes, 2 minutes. How much time do we need? Oh, by the way, this PowerPoint is in right here. All right, anybody, what do we got?
Well, we kind of have two. And so this is always where we get like, which one? Because we have the long one about being a family-centric model and for full person education. And
That's the one I labeled as too long to
that's
remember,
too
something
long
about
to remember
family-centric
one
stuff.
about family-centric stuff. And that's our actually official
Yes.
mission
If the
statement.
charter board ever asked
Yeah.
us, what is your mission statement? That's the one,
Family-centric
because that's on our
stuff.
website and everything, right?
Yes, but then we adopted empowering the whole person, body, mind, heart, spirit through education.
Yeah. Anybody write anything different, Ben? You're here at the original time. You were at the table though, right? When we came up with that longer one? I think it was 2014, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. How about you, Miss Sobey?
I wrote whole person education.
Full person
I
education.
remember the whole thing.
Yeah.
You, Beth?
To educate the whole child instead of empower the whole child, mind, body, heart, spirit. Not the empower.
Yeah, there's what it is on our website and on the charter board site, 2014. It is time I think, to get serious about reframing our mission statement this year. Paideia Academies utilize a family-centric model to enlist the support of families in the education and upbringing of the whole child. That's a good statement. Academic and intellectual, recreational and cultural, character and leadership, emotional, physical and mental health, to empower students to achieve success in college, career, citizenship, and family life. The challenge with that is it doesn't stir emotion. I can't remember it. So I would encourage us this year to rethink that mission statement. The mission statement we all think of is, right, empower, whole person, body, mind, heart, spirit, through education. Exactly. And in your binders that I put together for you, we'll load them up here in a minute. I've got some more documents to help us understand really what is the purpose and the moral purpose of Paideia. This is on our signs. It's in the front here. We enter to live, to love, and to learn. Go forth, leave a legacy. There's just too many things, so we need to define it down. The structure of Paideia, our charter sponsor, as you know, is Arizona State Board for Charter Schools. We have a charter contract. I want to remind us that it's a 15-year contract. It is dated February 29th, 2012, when Beth and I were standing in the office of Deanna Rowe.
Yes, I don't know.
Deanna Rowe, I think it was. Do you remember her, Joe?
I do very well.
Yeah, we want to say good things about her. Good person. So we signed the contract on that date in 2012. It is it is up February 29th, 2027. That is roaring our way so fast. Then we'll sign a 20-year contract, and it'll 20 years. I mean, that'll come fast too, but I won't be here. So there'll be a bunch of folks to do that thing. The charter holder then is Paideia Academies Inc., a nonprofit corporation. The charter representative is me. There's the difference between a corporate board and a governing board. If we're asked, the governing board is the corporate board is the governing board. We could have opted to have us as a corporate board. I think we did this at the very beginning. And then we had a school board, a governing board, and then we just combined them. It was just too unwieldy. Our charter members who are the board has to be listed on the Arizona Corporation Commission. And that is these, Dr. Tejan, director, Mrs. Mendonça, myself. I'm also listed twice there because I'm also the president, CEO, executive director that's not listed there. So that's what I had to opt for. Mrs. Mendonça is vice president, Miss Jones, which I need to change this, Miss Jones, Crystal, Miss Hobage, Miss Martinez as members. This is on the Arizona Corporation Commission, and it's listed on the Arizona State Charter Board's website. LEA versus the school site. And LEA stands for the Local Education Administration Authority. That came out weird. Agency. The LEA is the Local Education Agency. That is Paideia Academies Inc. It's kind of like a district. Same. We don't call ourselves a district. We do because it's just the language of that, but we're more a corporation, not as opposed to a district. Then we have two school sites, Paideia Academies Inc. and PLA. And that's important to know because we are a multiple site entity, right, Joel?
Yes, we are.
And we're budgeted and treated as such. Our governance documents, they should all be in our member binder. There's a couple I want to go over, and I'm glad you're here, Joel, because I want to have your voice in this. We restated the Articles of Incorporation in September 2020. Our bylaws are good. They've been restated 2020. Conflict of interest policy is up to date. I want to review, it's on our agenda, just a heads up, the delegation of authority developed in September 2020. I think it's unwieldy, and I would like to review that today, as well as review the organizational chart that was revised in 2020. The delegation of authority basically delegates the spending of our money and entering the contracts with outside entities. And here's what we have on the books right now. Anything budgeted with obligations of $50,000 or less, I sign off as the executive director. It's not required to have Ms. Jones, the chairperson, sign off, or the board resolution. Any budget items is between $50,000 and $100,000. I sign off and the chairperson sign off. No real board resolution is required. Here's where it gets a little bit wonky. If it's a budgeted financial obligation, then I'm required to sign off, chairperson, and then we have to come up with a board resolution. That's become a little cumbersome in the past. My suggestion to us is if it's a budgeted item, then because the board already approved the budget, why would it go back to do a board resolution? So these are a couple that I would like to. That's the only one that I think is weird. The unbudgeted one, I totally agree. If it's an unbudgeted financial obligation, then of greater than $25,000, I would redo that one. That would have stopped me in a lot of different things and really would have tied us up. I'd like to increase that. I believe. Look on our agenda. Is this a voting item? It is 5D.
Yeah.
5D. So I would like to address item 5D, please, Ms. Chairperson. I'm not sure if that's the legal way to do it. Joel, could you offer any insight into the conversation that I just introduced?
Conversation, Brian.
Well, the idea that on our delegation of authority, the budgeted financial obligations of $100,000 or more, that it would require the executive director to come with a board resolution to the board to approve that. My thought is it's a budgeted item. We already put it in the budget. Why would we need to do that?
I would say you probably would, if when the board passes the budget, the level of spending is set, and within the course of the year, even if the spending plan changes, but the budget is still intact. I guess that's the question for the board. Are you comfortable with the executive director having been given the authority over that budgeted expenditure level in its entirety, our budget? And that way, if they can stay within those parameters, they're fine. If they need to increase the spending level, that's when it might be a good idea for them to come to the board and say, hey, I got to change if something's come up. And that at that point, it changes your performance projection for the year. Is that what you mean, Brian?
Right. And now, if I understand it right, would this be a budgeted financial obligation? Would that be a budgeted item that was already budgeted in April? For the coming year or whatever?
Hearing that, yeah, I think that's what that's referring to. We've already budgeted, the board has approved that in the May or June meeting in the budget. And they oftentimes don't know every single detail in the budget, but they know their spending plan for the year. Those are the expenditure levels they're agreeing to essentially, and the revenue that they're anticipating. But in my mind, if I was a board member, I want to give you the authority, I've agreed that those are the parameters, revenue and expense. If anything changes over a certain amount, you got to come back to us and let us know what's going on and that you need some new approval. Other than that, you don't want to be involved in every nitpicky decision. You want to be involved in anything that changes the picture for the year. So as an example, if the spending plan is $8 million and we spend that $8 million differently than we anticipated, but we still come in.
This is on section 8, the last, or section 7, I think it is. The last page of section 7 is this document we're talking about.
We're having a fun time with technology today.
It's dropping at 30 minutes. I did that last time.
No.
Oh, really? This conference?
I'm gonna call you again, Joel.
Okay.
Oh, you read that. Very good.
All right,
We have 30 minutes.
let's speed it up here a little bit.
It drops next time. We know
So,
So, Ben, what's going through your head?
I'm just looking for the policy. I think there's a typo in the first one. Not that it matters a whole lot, but that should be pledge the financial obligation for 50 grand or less, and the term is less than 12 months. I think really one of the reasons that we have board resolutions and chairperson signatures is when contracts bind the company, behind the school for longer than a year, because our governance only lasts a year.
Hmm.
So
So you're talking about the second cell where it says budgeted financial obligations between 50 and 100?
well, the error is in the first cell.
The first cell.
The or should be an and. The financial obligations less than 50 grand and the term is less than 12 months. Yes. Then you don't need chairperson to put approval. It's the immediate can act on is their own.
But that's, I mean, that's the one that's in our binder, does say or.
Sections.
It's in the last page of section 7.
That should be the same one I've got in my hand here.
Yeah.
Or.
Doesn't make sense as an or because
that same typo exists in the second cell, then. 50 or 100 or. I would think that would be and as well. Any obligation that extends out of the current term.
That's a good point because, for example, I think we just went into a little baby agreement with security cameras. It's like $200 a month, and it's going to extend out more than 12 months. So according to that, I should have I should have gotten Ms. Jones' signature on that as well. I didn't even think about it.
term of board term is 12 months or less. So if the obligation in the first cell, if the obligation is over, okay, maybe that's not a typo. That's okay.
Term is 12 months or less, so it's going to, so it's not going to go past a year.
Right.
Correct.
Then the executive director can sign
that's-
those things.
So is it the second one that should say and? If it's more than 12 months?
I would, just for the purposes of clarity, if it's a budgeted or unbudgeted expenditure of $50,000 a year, and it extends into future years, that's definitely, in my mind, it's a significant event. Under 50,000, so it's 49,000 and extends for 48 months, 49,000 a year, is that Like, are we to interpret that then as a total aggregate over the whole time of the contract?
Yeah, I think that's what it,
Yeah.
what is the liability, the overall liability? So if it's a 4-year contract, but it's only costing us 50 grand,
In total, yeah, so
Total.
without regard to the fiscal period, the total value of the contract or obligation.
then we only need the ED's signature. Maybe that's why it's a 4
Mm.
in the first cell.
I understand the or in the first cell.
Second one is,
Might be the second.
so obligation 50 and 100, or
So if it's gonna be more than 12 months.
more than term of more than 12.
I feel like there's a better way to explain that with the dual qualifier. The way that appears, those are separate, potentially separate situations. Anything over 12 months requires approval. That's, I guess, a pretty clean way to look at it. Anything over 12 months, you need a second signature.
Yeah, that's how it reads right now, I think.
This is the one.
Or
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think that's
Oh,
doable.
okay.
I don't have any problem with that one. The one that I'm, the
Yeah,
one,
right.
the two that I'm, the two that I have an issue with in practice is if it's a budget, the one that says budget financial obligations of $100,000 or more requires a board resolution. It's a budgeted financial item, so that's where it's like we already discussed this. It's in our budget. That would mean curriculum, Victoria.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a lot of stuff
Yes.
that we'd be coming to the
If it's
board,
budgeted and the board has already
approve the
approved the
budget.
budget, then I don't.
I can see the
That's my
chairperson's,
thing. If there's no change to the spending plan, that's kind of what you want the executive director to have purview over. You know, that, hey, we've granted you a spending capacity based on this revenue assumption. You make it happen. And other than if it's term extends beyond 12 months and it's an ongoing obligation, that's where the board is interested. But you're asking for new spending.
that's the one, the new spending I could see, you know, that's a lot of obligation for the executive director to say, yeah, okay, this isn't on our budget. I want to do it.
And those are the ones that get you in trouble. Is that if the wrong things happen at the wrong time, it's that unbudgeted stuff that changes the.
So you're
Yeah.
proposing that we change the board resolution column to not require under budgeted financial obligations of 100,000 or more.
That's my proposal. That's what I would
Proposing that,
suggest.
yeah.
Yeah. On that one.
I'm just trying to think of why we would have it there. So I can play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Was there some, one thing I can think of is if there was some sort of procurement policy that we were trying to implement, where if it was a 6-figure liability, then the board would have some sort of oversight to make sure that you were seeking multiple offers. But I can't say for sure that that is why, or if that's even effective, but maybe that number needs to be higher if there are a lot of $100,000 expenditures.
Joel, do we in our financial policies, we do have that already, that we seek 3 bids for a certain threshold. I can't remember what the threshold is. I think it's 50,000
Yeah.
in our financial policies handbook.
Yes, we defer to the federal policy for anything that we're gonna spend any portion on federal funds, which is quite a bit lower, so. And then to your point, there are a number of vendors that will spend, you know, in that range, maybe even more. Special education could be one of those, maintenance and repair vendors at times. It's not usually every year, but it can happen where we're in 6-figure territory
Yeah.
with a provider like special education.
Say again? Yeah, curriculum does every year, man. We'd be coming to the board for board
All the meal
resolutions
plans for National School
Yeah,
Lunch. for
every
sure.
year for that. That's a low threshold to bother the board with.
So do we need a higher threshold, or do we need to just get rid of this?
The 100, the third cell down.
Yeah, do we just change the threshold number or do we just say not required?
Well, I think it's okay. Let's say that we have this thing budgeted and then the contract comes through or something. We have to have a signature for the contract anyway. So I think that's good for me to sign off on that purchase order or whatever, and then to get the chairperson. That's where we bother the chairperson for those things, because it won't always be Miss Jones. It might be you. We haven't voted yet.
It's not gonna be me.
Pretty sure.
Y'all came to the wrong meeting.
But you see what I'm saying, right? Because it could be somebody outside of this room, outside this company, that I got to call up and chase down to Starbucks. Say, hey, would you mind signing this damn thing?
Chase down the Starbucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was me when we put this in.
Yeah. You and Aaron, co-people.
Well, I mean, I can't adjust it. I can't think of why we would need it. So I don't know if I mean, what happens if it's a $250,000 deal? Like, are we looking at anything that costs that much?
But
Is
the
it-
fact is, it's still budgeted, so that's what, I
It's
mean, it's
budgeted.
already in the budget.
Yeah.
It's when we step outside the budget. and we-
That's the issue. That's where I want
The board
protection.
approves the money to be spent, but the board, I think the purpose of the delegation of authority is to have a triple check on where the money actually goes,
Mhm.
even though it's already been allocated.
Yeah.
So I know why it was there,
Yeah,
but the dollar amount sounds like it's not making sense.
Yeah, it does.
So,
yeah.
but I don't know what the right number is, or if this is kind of maybe an archaic way of doing it, because we move too fast, or we don't have, like, we have a whole bunch of $100,000 things, but we don't have any $200,000 things, or 250, like, so this, we wouldn't need this if we're not spending money in those chunks.
Yeah, what's some of the big ones, Joel? Like transportation is a huge
Yeah, I'm
one.
gonna look and tell you what vendors we spent that kind of money with in the last.
Transportation's
Here.
over 200,000.
Which one?
Transportation was.
Yeah,
over
that was
200,000.
380 or 400 or something like that.
Oh, and-
Maybe some of the special ed vendors.
Yeah,
That gets
those-
way
those-
expensive.
Speech, probably speech.
Well, maybe that's, and I don't know if this is how it would work, but maybe if it's not if it's
Oh,
an
food.
expenditure that's not being, like, we know we're gonna spend 300,000 on transportation, we all see that in the budget.
Well, the big districts absolutely get board approval for transportation contracts. I mean, those are multi-million-dollar
Yeah,
deals.
yeah, huge ones there.
So if you're scaling it down to our size,
Relatively.
Relatively,
I think that might be the type of thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
Of transportation and food, they're things that happen every year, but it's still
Big money.
really critical to get it right.
So I can wrap my head around because I'm not falling asleep. If the, so it's budgeted, but then it comes, you get a quote or whatever, it's over, that's when it has to come to the board, or is it just?
This would still be
anything
a
over that?
threshold specific, so if it's over a certain amount, the contract's worth a
regardless of
certain
if
value.
it's-
But isn't it already approved when it's in the budget and we
Yeah,
approved it? That's
It
why
is.
I'm
This
confused.
is,
So-
well, it's purely a triple check on
Hmm.
when we
Staying
sign this
within what we
contract,
said.
is this
Yeah.
what we want to
It's
do?
a decent
Oh,
control to
I
make sure
think
that,
so.
it's not following the bid process, or it's a vendor that we have an issue with, or it's there's some kind of conflict, who knows what might come up down the road.
Could it be like just the wording of changing like outside, like a vendor we haven't worked with, like if we've already agreed on a budget for specific things like the lunches or whatever, is it more if like something outside of that came up within it was still in the budget, but it was outside of the thing we initially agreed on? Could you just change the wording? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Kind of put it in a confusing way.
Like, so we approach the board when there is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I can see
Well,
why.
I can see, so let's say that, let's take transportation, that was a huge one. We definitely came to the board with the resolutions, and I presented, we had 3 bids, and we got that. And then I think you clued me on something. I think it's who signs that contract for that transportation contract. Is it only the executive director? Yeah, on a certain level. On other levels, maybe it's the executive director and the chairperson actually signs that obligation to that vendor on certain levels. But a board resolution to obligate us to that vendor and that amount, that's got to be bigger. Maybe this thing is budgeted financial obligations of $500,000 or more, or because we have some expenses coming when we do the refinancing and the bonding. We're going to come across there's going to be some expenses, man. Even hiring attorneys and all the different things that
Those are
those
things
coming.
that are accounted for in the budget that still.
But it would still be good, I think.
What you're getting from a board resolution is the people with the fiduciary responsibility approving your action. So you have basically like an ironclad signature instead of just a regular signature. That's the whole point, is that we've all acknowledged our fiduciary responsibility, and we are okay with the corporation entering this obligation. So it's really, what are you comfortable with? You want flexibility to be able to do these things that are more operational, but there might be a threshold there where you think, for the good of the school, my own ass. But
yeah, I think like $250,000. We don't have those very often. Maybe that third.
I was thinking that too.
Joel, what do you think?
You'll have 3 every year like that.
And we know
One Beeline Tours and Ridge Zeller, or whoever's in those capacities will all be over 250 each year. Everybody else is under that.
and
There's only 8 that were, in fact, there's only 6 that were above 100,000. There were 2 that were right close, just under it. So a total of 8 vendors. And of those, only 3 were over 200,000.
maybe that's it, and we just leave the required on the board resolution of that, but just increase that amount.
Or even in the 6-figure range, so they won't happen again.
I like the 250,000.
I like that too. Yeah. All right, let's go to that last column, the unbudgeted financial obligations. Board required with executive director, chairperson. I agree with these. I just don't know about that $25,000 amount for a board resolution on this. And so, Joel, can you tell us how often did I go into something was $25,000 more that was not budgeted? And don't say it out loud, but
What was it, Joel?
The way that we've been able to manage it, and this would be my strong preference at any point in the future, is we've been able to find a way to fit it within our original plan or new revenue that didn't change the bottom line plan. And that's, we've never really had deep discussions on that. Like, if we're talking about a material change, I'll say 25,000 could be to the spending plan with no other change in spending. We're just adding 25 grand. I don't know that that's unreasonable. Say the board needs to know about that. Yes, it depends on the year. Some years, who cares? Like, if it's one of those years on the bubble, 25,000 ends up being the difference based on what it's done between.
well, look at one. Let's read that the footnote. You got the footnote there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joel, this is the footnote for that. In this policy, unbudgeted financial obligation means any financial obligation that is either not contemplated in any category of the board approved budget, or 2, is contemplated in a category of the board approved budget, but is expected to result in exceeding that budgeted allocation for that category. Do we do that?
The only caveat you could make to that that might make it easier for the board is, and is also not offset by new revenues that are also not contemplated in the budget. So if you got a grant, a greenhouse grant, for does the board want to be bothered with that? Maybe we'll change it.
The doorbell?
No.
Doesn't matter.
Sure.
I think these are all signs. You can have to have.
Well, I understand what you just said, Bill, and that makes sense to me. I don't know if there's a way to just add that language.
Maybe it is in any unbudgeted obligation that results in a change to net income greater than $25,000 in the budget projection, and that way it kind of covers everything. Like, I want, in my perspective, I want to get the executive director in their head. You don't want to bother the board one. If we're going to change our projection and say we're not going to get what we thought, and the difference is now $25,000 or greater. I want to know, as a board member. Some years I won't care, other years I might.
But we
say,
still would
what do you
know.
do about that? It's really only about the bottom line change,
In the net income.
net income.
So if it results in a change in net income that's greater than $25,000,
Yep, from the original
then it's,
board approved
then that's
budget.
when it
Yep.
becomes affecting the budget, yeah.
I just,
99.9% of the changes, and we make them all the time throughout the year's
Yeah.
budget, they don't result in a net change. It's just a change in the spending plan, or there's new revenues coming into offset the spending, so it doesn't matter. We're talking about those outliers that it's like, hey, this is we weren't talking about this, there's no new money to offset it. I want to do this, or I need to do this. Sometimes you don't have an option.
So maybe is that
I don't always
just
go
the
with
sentence?
capital expenditures, it wouldn't fall into this category either, because it's like capital expenditure affects balance sheet. It doesn't affect your performance for the year from a debt service coverage, and what it affects your base cash flow.
Yeah.
Right?
So then is the key then, if I heard you say that this obligation does not have an offsetting net income, or
Yeah, so the tools available to the leader to address this unbudgeted thing are to change their spending plan to pay for it. In other words, we're going to spend 50,000 more here, but I'm going to spend 50,000 less collectively elsewhere. It has no effect. That's what we've pretty much always done, Brian.
yeah,
It's figured out that way. So in this case, the other is new source of revenue covers it. We're fine there. Or even an example of we were performing better than we thought we would from an enrollment perspective, but state revenues are going to be higher than we projected. So there's still no danger to the budget. It's when it changes the net income projection by more than 25,000. And you can set the limit higher. I don't know that 25, that may be a little too stringent, but what if they did that 5 times throughout the year?
well, that's what I was gonna say, if you did a bunch of 25, it adds up after a while.
Yeah, it's a real fast, yeah, right? There needs to be a total move of no more than whatever across it. As soon as they've made enough changes that it gets to where it's gonna push that number beyond X, Y, Z dollars and change, that's definitely when it requires, at least it's, the board being made aware and then saying no or yes to it. I wouldn't want that to be per occurrence, to your point, Beth. It needs to be however many changes you've made, if you've moved the number by this many dollars, it requires an approval of a new budget. Or it requires board approval before it can be done.
Who would know though?
Talk to controls, whoever's dealing with you on the finances, and the executive director should be very clear on that. Both of those are assumptions, but that's how we've operated for years. There's at least 2 people that are well aware of what the projection looks like, how close we are to it, and if anything's going to push us off the number, what we need to do about it.
So it sounds like we're wanting to just add to the language of how we're defining an unbudgeted financial obligation. Is that
Yeah,
what
that's
I'm
I'm
understanding?
that's I'm understanding.
Or change, you mean, change to, right?
The
Just
change
contemplate
to
a category.
the
Right.
definition of an unbudgeted financial obligation that we want to make. What I'm understanding is we're saying that if it's these things and it results in a change in net income greater than 25,000.
Should we give this one to an attorney to look at? Who did this for us? Remember, it was somebody from Osborne Maladon.
Yeah, Mac.
Oh, Mac did it. Yeah.
But I think you can, so. But you want to be able to make the unbudgeted changes that are less than 25 grand still without approval, right? So,
Right, only if it's a change in net income that's greater than 25,000.
Basically, you're saying the board wants to be notified and have the chance to say no or yes. If whatever number of changes have occurred that will push net income, to the negative, more than $25,000 from what we approved at the beginning of the year. But give your leader total latitude up to that point. Because there's plenty of times we make changes that have a positive impact on net income in the year.
Oh yeah. So for example, right now it's not budgeted, but we are buying 90 trees for the Peace Path, right? And that's a $70,000 grant from Canopy from the city of Phoenix. Okay, that money wasn't budgeted. I was working on it, but we didn't put it in budget because we weren't sure if I was going to get that thing. But now we have it. So do I come to the board resolution to say that we have this, but we also have the grant that offsets that?
I mean, yes,
Under this?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if,
I mean, ultimately, it doesn't change net income if you've got it paid for.
no, I haven't paid for it, right? So I think that sentence of with no, I can't remember how you said it, but
Net
Alright,
income.
next.
Change in net income.
Well, unbudgeted financial obligation is either not contemplated in the budget or it changes net income, period. But then you need approval if it changes net income by over 25 grand. That's what I understand.
as it said,
I mean, corporate resolution,
yeah,
as it sets.
as we want it to be, not as it sits right here. So what would that sentence be?
It's either one, not contemplated in any category of the current or approved budget, or is contemplated in a category of the current or approved budget, but is expected to result in a change in net income. And the parenthetical in the column would be if change in net income is greater than 25,000.
A negative change.
Negative.
Yeah, important to point that out.
And so then this one would be, in the column, it would be not greater than $25,000, it just as a negative change in the budget of more than $25,000.
Right.
Well, I thought we were,
Result,
So I like that's a simple sentence right there, but is expected to result in a negative change in net income.
if it will reduce net income by an amount greater than $25,000 from what the board approved.
yeah, so we can't just spell out our definition of unbudgeted financial obligation and include that?
Yeah, we can.
So it doesn't change the,
The little parentheses.
right, does it? Because it's still gonna be if greater than 25,000 if it's a negative change in net income.
That's true.
Because
Then
we're
the-
spelling
then-
out our definition
got
of the
it.
policy.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. The whole thing fits just with those at the end, stopping at result in a negative change in net income. And then up
Right.
there is greater than $25,000.
Okay.
And so in the column, just in the row just above it, we're gonna keep required,
Mhm,
we're gonna change the 100 to 250,000, right?
mhm. That's my understanding.
That's my understanding too.
What he has to say all that?
Adopt a modified delegation authority policy, as discussed.
I'll second.
Okay. That turned out to be simpler than we thought. I thought of it. That's simple wording. I appreciate that. Okay.
Would this one be roll?
The roll call.
Yeah, definitely roll call. This is, what item is this? This is item 5D.
Dr. Windsor?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. T. Jensen? Ms. Mendoza? Yes. Mrs. Hovage? Yes.
One other set of eyes after you. That just, I don't.
I'm definitely going to, most definitely. Yes. All right, the next item is on here is the organizational chart. I just want to review this thing, and it's in your handbook as well. It's just before the delegation of authority. We came up with this in 2020 as well, I believe. October 26th of 2020. The organizational chart shows that the Arizona School Board for Charter Schools is our authorizing agency. Paideia Academies Inc. is the charter holder. We have, and right under the charter holder authority is the Board of Directors, the school governing board, the corporate directors. Answering directly to them is the chairperson. The chairperson serves as a liaison between the executive director and the board. The treasurer, secretary, executive director is on the board at this point, but doesn't always have to be on the board, by the way. The executive director serves at the pleasure of the board and has stewardship over the operations of the corporation. And then we had contemplated back in 2020 a senior advisor, a future role to provide counsel to the board, to mentor the executive director, to perform special projects assigned by the executive director, and is subject to removal by the board. The executive director has direct responsibility over all employees and agents of the corporation. I bring this up now because we're in the mode of transition. Mrs. Mendoza is transitioning. I think we have a really good transition plan for her right now. And as soon as Mrs. Mendoza's transition plan is operational, then I want to really dig into my transition plan with Ms. Jones. So is this, I want to have a discussion, is this still viable? Is this something we want to readdress in the future? It is also item 5E to discuss.
So you're both leaving? Is what you're
Hi.
saying?
I'm really leaving.
Wow.
And
I thought we all knew.
there,
Yes, Mrs. Mendoza is resigning January
I'm
3rd.
retiring.
That what I say?
You said resigning.
Retiring. I meant retiring. Retiring January 30th. And then my executive director contract goes to June 30th. And after that, we have to make a decision, because I won't be executive director after that, but I could stay on in some capacity. In 2020, we'd anticipated this moment with having a senior advisor. So I just wanted to be up on the table with it, because it seemed like we'd forgotten earlier in the year about this.
I'm just curious who's filling these roles when that's,
The board will have to hire and find a new executive director, and it's contemplated that Miss Victoria Jones would step into the role of executive director. From here until then, she and I and Mrs. Mendonça will craft kind of the division of duties and what that would mean for the new executive director role. A lot of that's going to depend on if we have a senior advisor, if that's the way we want to continue on. And then I'm anticipating I'd be the senior advisor. That's anticipation.
Box employees and agents, is that all of the staff? Principals, your teachers, your admin, custodians?
Agents.
Agents.
I think also the executive director is responsible for all of the vendors, the contractors, everybody gets paid by Paideia.
So in the spirit of transition, I think this is not nearly detailed enough. I think we should break out, I mean, we have a whole new school since 2020, right?
We do.
So, I mean, I think there needs to be a lot more detail around authority and roles that we want always filled at the corporation, at the site, the school sites. So if I were to request a change or recommend a change, it would be focus on the downstream roles that we need to rely on, that are always gonna be part of the structure. Maybe you already have that and it's not in here, but
We had discussed that, and then Mac had said, well, you don't really need that for the organizational chart for the charter board and for audit purposes, but we certainly should do that and have that really fleshed out. It would help everybody to know who does what, what the lines of authority is and responsibilities are.
yeah, and I think that, I mean, depends on whatever you put in, depends on what you want this document for as well, right? This is satisfactory for the charter board. So maybe this doesn't have to be changed at all, as long as we're okay with, not a lot of detail in here anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
But it needs to be spelled out moving forward, so we'll know.
I think for purposes of transition and for effective management of the structure, you need to have fleshed out structure. And KDIF's board chart is a lot more complicated. We don't have any employees, so.
That is something that you could instruct the executive director to do and then report back. And with directing the executive staff to flesh out what is this, what do we anticipate the senior advisor role is going to be? What do you anticipate the new executive director roles to be? Who is the support staff? You know, you've got we probably don't have the staff in place that we might need, or we might have, we just don't know. So that's a good exercise to do.
Discussion/vote. So I would move to direct the executive director and leadership team to analyze and develop a new organizational chart. Be presented for further discussion, vote at a future meeting.
And on this organizational chart, in your motion, be more like, what else do you want on that thing?
So the analysis should pertain to roles of staff and admin downstream of the executive director.
like break it down, so, because ultimately, I know it says they supervise them all, but ultimately, different people and they report. So each of them are actually broken down.
I see.
Okay,
I understand.
okay. Okay, I can second that motion.
Is that a roll?
Probably.
Voice?
Yeah, I'm rolling.
Roll. All right. Dr. Windsor,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Teagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendoza,
Yes.
Mrs. Holdridge, yes.
All right.
Joel, did my screen change to online?
Still says legal duties.
Okay, let me stop sharing and reshare. Oops.
Lost Joel at some point.
Where is this guy? Okay, there's that. I share that. Share. I need to find more things. Show all windows. There it is right there. Okay, Joel, everyone, I want to give you, Joel's going to go through some of our, oh, I got to log in. The fiduciary responsibilities of our finance. I want us to understand the new financial framework, the operational framework, and a little bit into the academic framework. Let me get there first. Oh, I know. It's right here. Being hid.
So are we skipping the I?
Yeah.
It says the I, doesn't it?
You know, we're going to skip committees for a minute. This isn't on there.
Yeah, that's high, right? Fiduciary responsibilities.
The very bottom one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Trying to get to our dashboard.
Is it under more, Brian, now? The one down below. Next to document management, I think it's under more.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So I want to give you. Yeah, we'll put these in your binders. We have a binder. This is going to go into section. There's the academic. No, is that operational? Operational. The change this year. Here's the operational framework. There's academic framework changed also. And financial framework changed also. But mainly I wanted Joel to go over the academic. Did I give you financial reading? There you go.
That's financial, I need academic.
Oh, academic, there you go. All right, Joel. Tell us about the financial framework. And I believe this is in section of your 8 of your binders.
So can you see, Brian, if you scroll down there, can you see what your dashboard looks like?
Yes, I can.
That's what we want it to look like. And if you open each of those up, it gives you some specific measures. I'm going to cover a couple of them in general terms because they're super easy, and then you can open up some others. So the first two, the going concern. That has to do with whether or not you have a going concern finding in your audit for whatever fiscal year that all these measures are being done. And a going concern finding is basically saying your auditor raises the question that you are not likely able to continue as a going concern, meaning operating at all for a period greater than the 12 months of the upcoming fiscal year unless
Oh, did we just drop him? I think we 30 minutes just went up again.
He's been off the phone.
yeah, I've been off the phone for a while. You want to call me back? I can
Yeah, we're gonna have to call you, Joel. You keep dropping.
give me a call.
Why does that's
All right.
bizarre that our
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Hello?
there we go.
Hey,
Let me mute my, my Zoom mic as well. Okay, so the going concern finding, pretty simple to understand. Your auditor says, I don't think you're gonna be able to continue operating unless you significantly change something, restructure your debt, get new revenue, something. So that right off the bat, there is only meet standard and below standard on that. So it's a pass fail. Same thing with default. It has to do with default on your major indebtedness obligations, in your case, the bonds and bank loans related to facilities. If you're in an event of default, meaning you tripped your financial covenants or you failed to make a debt service payment, which is a really big deal, that lender will declare an event of default. That basically puts you in this situation again, pass, fail. Neither of those have ever been a factor for you, and I anticipate they never will be. The next one down, available reserve, has to do with a measure of liquidity. And this is how much unrestricted cash you have on your balance sheet in direct comparison to the size of your budget. So it's relative.
It's on page
to that.
4, kind of in the middle.
Dollar amount. It's
Got it.
how many days could you operate at your current expense level without a new influx of cash and still be okay? They set the standard at 30 days. They're going to be increasing this 5 days a year to get to 45 days beginning in fiscal year 25. It's actually in 24, the year that we just completed. So we have an excellent liquidity, not a factor for us, but it is something that they track and they care very deeply about that.
You
They
see, we had
changed a couple of the things that are allowing us to add into the liquidity measure as well. Any near-term accounts receivable from state or federal sources that were not yet received as of 6/30 from the fiscal year, but came in subsequent, they allow us to count that as liquidity, which is a reasonable effort. So that helps quite a bit too. We've never counted that in the past and still have the kind of balance sheet we do. The next line down is revenues exceeds expenses. So this is one where they want you to have at least $1 of positive net income. In your situation, you cannot get a positive debt service coverage, which is the next line down, without significantly more than $1 of positive net income.
It's on page 6.
For the principal that you service of your benefits, not just the interest. But one of the things they changed, and I'm a big fan of this one for the future, is they said, hey, we're not going to worry too much about your net income if your cash reserves are at a certain level, because we're thinking that maybe you did that on purpose. And you were using, basically accumulated revenues from a prior year to support a budget investment in a year. So if you have high liquidity, they're going to kind of give you a pass on this particular standard unless you do it year after year after year. And the next one down, Brian, is facilities and debt costs are covered. So whether you lease or have a mortgage, so to speak, on your facilities, they want you to cover your debt service at a level of
Page 7,
1.10 times your actual, which essentially means if you looked at your net income available, it equated to about 10% of your total debt service for the year. It's a good way to look at what that actually means in numbers. And that's debt service, both interest and principal. Only one of those appears under profit and loss. So this is a minimum threshold for performance in my mind. There are times where a school like Paideia might actually choose to go below that level because it has significant reserves and may choose to invest one time in something it does not capitalize. And based on its financial plan, it can totally afford to do that. They're giving us basically the ability to do that with this measure as well. Saying, hey, if you've been a good steward in the past and you have this beautiful balance sheet, spend it as you wish. Just don't do it for multiple years in a row and to the detriment of your balance sheet, spend off your reserve, which we would never do that either. And then the
It's on
last
page
one,
7 and 8, that one was.
and one that I
This
think
one.
makes sense to track too, is do we have a stable or increasing annual membership, basically students in our membership? And this enrollment stability thing is one that for years and years, I think they were fully aware, they just didn't track it. It's now one of your fixed criteria. If you have a declining membership year over year, at some point when the losses are more significant than 5%, they want to at least top you a little bit so that to make sure you're going to be okay. So in your case, it's growing. We look beautiful there as well. We have a very, very good looking dashboard with the authorizers. Any questions on those 6 different measures and what those functionally mean from a board's perspective, the things that you need to pay attention to? We went through them all. There's really only 2 that have, if you focus on those, you've accomplished all of the others except for enrollment. If you focus on your liquidity and your fixed cost coverage or your debt service coverage, which we talk about at every meeting, by virtue of those being on track, everything else is accomplished with the exception of enrollment.
Yeah, that's why in our dashboard.
You have to have good enrollment to maintain those others over a period of time anyway, so.
Yeah. So on the dashboard, that's why we always ask about days cash on hand, debt service coverage ratio, and a debt service coverage ratio right there, and their net income by the end of the year. Those 3 things, and now we need. I need to add: are we stable in our enrollment on that one?
Yeah. And they give some latitude, Brian, for swings from one year to the next. They don't worry about that. Is it declining more than 5% a year for 3 years? Some version of that. Which that would be problematic if it went down 3 years in a row. That would not be ideal.
Okay. That's mainly what I wanted you here for, Joel, is that financial one. I know I can go over, I'm going to push up there on our operational one just to show we're stable. I know that every year we've been in the pink for a couple of things. I don't know if you remember lamenting about some student admission, attendance, and enrollment stuff we've had gone on, enrollment process. This was years ago. This was last year when I forgot to upload a meeting notice onto the website. But if you look here, now we're all green. We meet in our overall ratings, our board expectations. You do have the whole packet inside of your board meeting binder, just to be aware of what you're responsible for. And then the last one is the academic performance. And if you see on 2023 as the latest one, we ranked above standard for the state. And Beth, you said the next one's coming out here shortly, November 1st. Next Friday. So you have those in your binder for you to look at. Joel, I think that's really all that I needed you for this one. If you wanted to go spend time with your family, I'm not gonna let these people do that, but you can.
I love hanging out with you guys, but I'll take you up on that.
All right, all right.
You guys have a good evening. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Right.
Thanks, Joel. All right. Let's see where we are on this thing. We did the 3 frameworks: operational, academic. I wanted just to make sure we're aware that some threats to your legal duties. If you have a conflict of interest, private inurement, excess benefit could be a threat to us. If somebody's making more money outrageously or having other perks and benefits beyond, failure to exercise due care, exercise sufficient oversight, especially the financial oversight, operations oversight. That's a big part of our audit, and all heads up on that one. I think we do very well on the financial one and everything. I want just to make sure you're aware of open meeting laws in your handbook that will flesh out, and I'll give you the others. It's in there. You have the open meeting in section 5. You have the open meeting laws in there. And in section 1, I put in the board meeting documents for you to know how to run a board meeting, just in case something happens. Your role as a board member is really to ensure. Our role as executive team is to execute. All right. Let's go with the rest of the agenda. I think it's 5C, Ms. Jones.
Right,
Until you're fading fast. We'll get this done quick.
Officers, so we need to go through our election process.
Right.
You have any nominations or self-nominations for the board?
Go ahead.
Hmm?
You
I
can
would
go.
like to nominate. There are several reasons why I would like to not be the board chair anymore. So I'd like to nominate Dr. Windsor to step back in as board chair,
I certainly would accept that.
chairperson.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Thank you very much. Let's see next nomination. Do we have any other nominations for chairperson?
Do I know?
Self-nominations?
Well, I would nominate you.
Yes, you already got me on one thing last year.
It's coming again. I just
No.
don't know which one it is.
Something else is coming, believe me. Do we have to, does someone have to second the nomination, or do we just go
Right.
through?
Oh, I'll
Somebody
second.
Okay.
This will be roll call or just?
I think we still need someone to second the nomination.
Crystal,
I
you-
second.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay. And so, yeah, we can roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Mhm.
Dr. Windsor,
yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Tija,
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza,
Yes.
Mrs. Hovage. Yes.
All right, chairperson has been voted. And so the next one is treasurer. Oh, so now, do you take over now?
She's been waiting to do that. I feel like
How soon does that start?
It's funny.
Do we have a treasurer right now? That's
Miss
Mrs.
Beth,
Mendoza.
yes.
I'm not gonna be anything because I'm coming off board.
You don't even want to stay with us.
Tell
on
what
the
If I'm what it's not.
board? Yes.
in the past, the treasurer it's in your binder as well, kind of what the duties of the treasurer are. And really, the treasurer would meet with the executive director and our financial consultant before this meeting. And the treasurer would be the one that says, hey, yeah, I've reviewed all the records. I think everything is good. We're all moving forward nicely, and just have that other eyes on our budgets and our finances, other than inside people who work here. Secretary, if we were running on all cylinders, we'd have somebody here actually taking the notes, and the secretary would be more uploading, making sure the notes are in the right format, making sure that all of our legal documents are all stored right, making sure that things are uploaded on the website correctly, and all those timely things. And those are those two jobs.
No.
You want treasurer?
No.
Well, you can't nominate if somebody in absentia. They get to not be treasurer?
No, I'm saying is they're not here.
I'm sorry, something's come up, y'all.
No, I'm saying that they should have been there if they didn't want to.
Oh, I see. elect them because they're not here.
Wow, I mean, there's the three of y'all sitting here, so.
Well, we also, since we have, the chairperson is also executive director, we'll need somebody to play chairperson, for delegation authority purposes, which will be.
Oh, that's true. It should probably be treasurer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
We
probably,
don't have a vice chair.
that's a good point.
Would you like to nominate? I would like to
Take
nominate
that as a
you.
yes.
I'll second that. I was about to say you should be, so treasurer, your treasurer.
I'll do that.
Hang out, man. In the radio station.
Find somebody to replace me.
And that's another roll.
Yeah.
See, I don't even know when to do roll calls. I'm in the worst position.
You've done a great job.
Dr. Windsor,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Tejan. Yes.
Abstain.
Oh, Mrs. Mendoza,
Yes.
Mrs. Hovage. Yes.
I would like, I think what I'd like, I think, don't hate me too much, but I think I could nominate Ms. Jones to be secretary, and then I could get you also up to speed on the processes. You know what I mean? And then I think going forward, let's find us somebody who we could pay to come in here and take the notes. Because really, the board members should be highly like engaged, not worried about note taking, but really more engaged in the thought process and the decision making. And I think we could make that a new transition, that we have somebody here who's actually, responsible, just note taking. What do you think?
I heard you say is you nominating Ms. Jones?
Oh, actually, let me look in the bylaws for one moment, okay? Hold one. There's the articles. Okay, I'm on page 4, Ben, of the bylaws. Section 7. It's after, I think, the articles of incorporation are first. And because I have another idea.
Okay.
Okay, so see if I'm reading this correctly. I'm on page 4, section 1. Officers, is that what we're talking about right now? Like
Yes.
chair and treasurer, secretary, correct? Okay. The principal officers of the corporation shall be chairperson, okay, executive director, treasurer, secretary, each of whom is elected by the board, except for the position of secretary and treasurer. Officer positions may be simultaneously held. Now, unless provided otherwise by a resolution of the board, officers may be board members or employees of the corporation.
So you can't be chairperson and executive director at the same time. Is that what you're saying?
Nope. I'm saying that the secretary, our board secretary, doesn't have to be a board member. Am I reading that right? Unless provided otherwise by resolution, officers may be board members or employees of the corporation.
Oh, yeah.
So it can be somebody that works here.
Mhm. Because if we're going to have, I'd like to move forward with, not just names and, if it's somebody we find inside of our corporation who can do the secretary stuff and come and take notes and learn how to upload things and take that on, would that be a paid position? Is that a stipendy position, you think, or is that a thing? You go, well, no, you can't pay them because now they're.
I don't know. If they want.
I think the bylaw says it's not compensated. Officer compensation. Corporation shall not compensate officers for serving as officers.
All right, well, I'll take it on. Because we don't have anyone, a staff member that we can nominate right now.
We don't have anybody right now. I was thinking maybe, if we.
I move to retain Ms. Hovitt as secretary.
And I
I second
second that one.
Secretary.
But you said you would take it.
Well, I don't really know why we would need to change. I personally think that you've been doing a great job.
I agree.
I'm not doing any of the extra stuff though, like all this legal stuff and that. I don't really.
I can show you.
When between those hours.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Well, maybe that's the part that we can. I don't know how that would work. Like if that can be done by
Dual
some
secretaries almost.
Okay, continue on that. Page 5, section 11A. Keep reading. The sentence that says, to the extent such other professional services are rendered by the individual who is also an officer. Oh, that probably just means, hey, like Mrs. Mendoza's also.
or other.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that secretary
No.
is compensated for doing secretary board stuff. Okay, never mind. But that was a little bit of a loophole or something.
Well,
Okay.
I don't mind doing this part. I just kind of feel bad that I can't really do the job and as it's listed because my hours don't really allow it. And I don't really have the knowledge of,
Well, and I think that's the reality of it. It's like, because what you are already doing as Lighthouse president of the Lighthouse is a tremendous work. I mean, it is a tremendous work. I would want you to stay doing that. In fact, I don't know if you noticed, I put a committee down there, F15, Community Engagement Committee. I put that as, man, that could be, you do that already. That could be a great.
and I don't want to give that up. I
No.
do love that.
No,
I enjoy it.
Well, let's put that as your name.
Okay.
I think I'm still going to find somebody in our corporation who we could have come and learn how to support and take notes and upload those and do that as a regular job.
Mhm.
So you could focus on the real task at hand.
All right. So who and who?
Well, the motion on the floor is to table election of the secretary. Or the secretary.
Oh, I thought
we
that.
can do that.
Retain the secretary position.
Oh, retain. I had said
So
table.
the secretary and table election.
I got you. Does that mean? What? Say it again. I'm getting.
The motion is to retain Ms. Hovitt as
Gotcha.
secretary and to table election of the secretary until next week. We go back and do that for the other positions too. That's fine.
Okay.
Is
Second, I
that
second that.
something? Okay, yeah.
Oh, you said that?
Yeah.
I put Miss Jones.
Oh, she probably did before me.
So roll again.
Mhm.
Dr. Windsor?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Cheejan?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mrs. Hovage? Yes.
So just for my clarification on that, if I can ask a question, can there be more than one person in a role?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think officers is singular bylaws.
I don't think we have any additional officers, do we?
No.
Okay.
Number 5, points of information was, I didn't want to just agendaize it, but the information that Mrs. Mendoza is retiring on January 30th, and my contract is up on June 30th, so there's some transitions to be aware of. That was what that was. All right, F. We're not going. I just want to just tell you about F. Every year we talk about this. Create committees for the success of Paideia. Suggested committees in the board trainings I've done is governance and legal. I usually go to Ben anyway for legal advice and legal back and forth. I also thought that in light of some of the things that have happened over the last little while, maybe there is a person here that that has their eye on school health and safety and helps us with our looks over our emergency operations plan that we have. It's robust, it's there, but it would be nice if somebody on the corporate board was also aware of that. Finance and budget, academic excellence, always been there. And then I thought of like a community engagement committee, because you already do that, and you could gather up that's the lighthouse committee and do that. That's not something we have to vote on, just your awareness. Unless somebody says, yes, I want to officially be that committee driver.
I mean, I'll do the engagement. Like you said, it's Lighthouse.
It is lighthouse.
I've owned it. They won't let me step down, so.
And in the bylaws on page 6, there's an article, there's some information about committees. Very good. In your binder, I put some things over here for you to insert things in your team, in your board member binder. One of them is a calendar. I just want us to be aware of the cultural calendar we have at Paideia, so you know events coming up. I know you do, but I'm not sure if you do because you're not as connected anymore. And I would love for the radio station to be involved in that. Franco's been really great, by the way. And then the last thing is we did the training, but I'd like us to go and just I'll guide you through what needs to be dumped out of your corporate binder for this fiscal year and what needs to be added into your corporate binder for this fiscal year. There you go. I would entertain a motion for adjourning.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. We are adjourned at 7:36 p.m.